Chapter 8:17, Shao Qingyuan's News. What surprised Gu Yundong was the youngest, Gu Yunke. The little girl was enjoying her meal. From time to time, she would look up at her second brother and cousin with obvious disdain. Despicable. Gu Yundong was stunned. After the little girl finished the food in her bowl, she said proudly, "I'm done. Second brother, come here. I'll feed you." Gu Yunshu, Gu Dajiang was speechless. Shao Qingyuan, Gu Yundong was speechless. Fortunately, she had swallowed the food in her mouth. Otherwise, she would have spat it out. Gu Yunshu quickly lowered his head. He did not hear her. Only Madame Yang paused and silently handed her bowl and chopsticks to Yunke. "Kiki." Gu Dajiang quickly stopped her. "Lun Yang, why do you want Kiki to feed you?" Madame Yang said, "Feeding seems to make the food taste better." "No, that's just your imagination." On the other hand, Yuanzhi was a little embarrassed. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry as he diverted Madame Yang's attention. "Mother, if you don't eat now, your favorite sour and spicy lotus root will be gone." When Madame Yang heard this, she quickly put away the bowl and stopped talking about feeding. Only then did everyone look away. Yuanzhi stayed in Gu Dafeng's arms and leaned against her. It was only when Yunshu and Yunke had finished eating and called him to come down that he reluctantly got off the bed and said to Gu Dafeng, "Father, Mother, I'll help Auntie Nyo tidy up the room. Can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course you can." Yuanzhi then dragged his cousins out. It was only when the three of them left the reception hall that they felt a little more at ease talking. At the mention of Han's legs, Shao Qingyuan, who had been silent, suddenly asked, "Are Uncle's legs very serious?" Gu Dajiang glanced at him. He was climbing up the ladder quite quickly. He was calling Han uncle just like that. Han had already gotten over it. He touched his legs and said, "They're quite serious, but it doesn't matter if the legs can't be cured." Just as Yundong said, "I can still do some carpentry." Mrs. Ren sold wooden carvings. "It seems that business is quite good." "It's good that you think that way," Gu Dajiang said. "But let's try visiting a few more medical centers. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, we won't give up." Gu Dajiang was a man. He knew very well that as the head of the family, Han might sound relaxed, but he actually felt terrible. He wanted to take on the responsibility of a husband and father, not a burden to these two. Wooden carvings could indeed bring income to the family, but it was still inconvenient to live. He still had to rely on his wife and son. If this continued, he would still feel defeated. "Let's go to Huimin Medical Center tomorrow," Gu Yundong said. Shao Qingyuan lowered his eyes. After a moment of silence, he said, "Huimin Medical Center is indeed the largest medical center in Shuanhe Prefecture, but according to what I know, a doctor who is good at treating legs and bones recently went to the medical center in Wanqing Prefecture. He was in the medicinal herb business now, so he had more contact with the medical center and was well informed." Wanqing Prefecture's medical center? Why did he go there? Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment. To be the doctor in charge? Gu Yundong choked. The Xian family used to live in Wanqing Prefecture, so the branch of Huimin Medical Center was not opened there. Now that the Xian family had fallen, they immediately opened a branch there. However, it seemed that they had limited manpower, so they brought the doctors there. "Then what should we do?" Gu Dafeng asked worriedly. Chapter 8:18, Shao Qingyuan has a candidate. Shao Qingyuan had already put down his chopsticks. Hearing this, he said, "I have a candidate here." "Who?" Gu Dafeng asked anxiously. "I'm opening a pharmacy in the prefectural city. I need a doctor to preside over the shop." Shao Qingyuan looked at Gu Yundong. "I've already told you that I found a doctor. He happens to be good at this. If you think it's okay, I'll bring him over tomorrow to take a look at eldest uncle." The doctor had already arrived at the prefectural city and was now living in the courtyard behind the medicine shop. However, the pharmacy was still being repaired, so it was still a little noisy during the day. Shao Qingyuan gave the old doctor silver, so that he could go to any tea house to drink tea, listen to books, or go to a beautiful pavilion to play with birds with other old men. However, the doctor was not interested in these things. After he came to the prefectural city, he went to the nearest medical center to discuss medicine with them. Today was the first day. It was said that he had been scolded. When the old doctor returned, he complained to Shao Qingyuan that lousy medical center was not good at all. The doctors inside were useless and arrogant. Shao Qingyuan suggested that he go to Huimin Medical Center to take a look. The old doctor planned to go there tomorrow. But there were patients here, he thought. The old doctor would definitely be more willing to treat people. Shao Qingyuan had always been reliable. Yundong knew that if that doctor did not have any ability, he would definitely not have suggested it. Therefore, her eyes immediately lit up. Without thinking, she said, "All right, then bring him over tomorrow." With the matter settled, the few of them heaved a sigh of relief. After dinner, Shao Qingyuan went back. The small courtyard was not very large. There were only a few rooms. It was already a little crowded for Yuanzhi and Yunshu to come, let alone Eldest Aunt Gu and her husband. Since there was no place for Shao Qingyuan to stay, he had to return to the pharmacy. After he left, Gu Dajiang let the two of them rest. After a long day, their emotions fluctuated. They cried and laughed at the same time, and most of their energy had disappeared. They were indeed very tired. She returned to her room and slept on the soft bed. Her son also returned to her side and lay between the two of them. Even though she was very tired, she could not fall asleep. After a long time, Bian Han sighed. "I didn't expect to leave the Zhou residence and see Yuanzhi again." Gu Dafeng nodded. She really thought that she would be busy in the Zhou mansion for the rest of her life and be tortured by Gu Qiuyue until the day she died. Bian Yuanzhi was sleeping in the middle. He looked at his parents and smiled in satisfaction. Gu Dafeng reached out and rubbed his head. "Yuanzhi, tell father and mother how you've been living for the past year. Also, your sister." At the mention of Bian Mulan, Yuanzhi was still very sad. He whispered about what happened after he was separated from them. From the moment Bian Mulan couldn't take it anymore and entrusted him to the Ding family before she died, to the time when the Ding family was unwilling to continue raising him and sent him to the old Gu family in Gu village. As for his days in the Gu family, he did not elaborate. However, Gu Dafeng had long known what the old Gu family was like. She also knew how difficult Yuanzi's life was. Later on, Gu Yundong came to the Gu village and deliberately plotted for the Ding family to bring him out of the old Gu family. His difficult days finally ended. In the end, Gu Yundong went to the place where Bian Mulan had died. She moved her urn out and brought it back to Yongfu village for burial. Speaking of this, the family felt sad again and cried fiercely. Chapter 8:19, Those Things. At this moment, Gu Dafeng was especially grateful to Gu Yundong. "Your cousin has really done too much for us." "Yes, my cousin is very powerful." On the way to escape, Aunt and Yunshu and Yinka came to Yongfu village under my cousin's protection. Eldest uncle was also found by my cousin. My cousin does many more things. Speaking of Gu Yundong, Yuanzi's eyes were filled with admiration. Gu Dafeng and Bian Han looked at each other lovingly. "Yes, you have to be as good as your cousin in the future." Bian Yuanzhi nodded hurriedly and began to talk about the days when he came to Yongfu village. He said that he met Yunshu's teacher as soon as he arrived in the county city. Then, his cousin asked the teacher to take him in as a student. Gu Dafeng and her husband were stunned. "What did you say? You went to school?" "Yes. My cousin said that you don't have to take the imperial examination, but you have to know how to read. If you study hard, your future will definitely not be bad. I'm studying in the county school with Yunshu now. Our teacher is very impressive. He used to be the top scholar and has very strict requirements for accepting students." Yunshu studied well and was chosen by the teacher. "However, I don't even know how to read, so my cousin spent a lot of effort to get the teacher to accept me. Gu Yundong expressed that she did not. Gu Dafeng and her husband were stunned. Although Gu Yundong had told them some things today, she had never mentioned that Yuanzhi was going to study in a school. Moreover, this school was not one of the small private schools in the village. The teacher was a big shot. Gu Dafeng was speechless. Who would have thought that Yundong would give Yuanzhi what she wanted to offer but could not afford? Yuanzhi was still talking. He said that the Gu family now had a workshop in Yongfu village and had more than 100 long-term workers. He also mentioned that there was a shop in the county city. Not long ago, she had opened a shop in the prefectural city and a milk tea shop with someone. It was also said that eldest uncle had entered the best school in the Shuanha prefecture to study and had been personally assessed by the mountain elder. The person who introduced him was the top scholar of their school. He also said that Shao Qingyuan was highly skilled in martial arts. When Shao Qingyuan was questioned by eldest uncle, he stood at the entrance motionlessly under the sun and rain. Shao Qingyuan treated his cousin and treated them very well. He even said that his cousin had made super delicious cake and candy. Not only did they like it, but even their classmates liked it. He also talked about many things that he had experienced after coming to Yongfu village. Gu Dafeng and her husband were shocked at first, but then they became numb. They felt that many things in their minds had been overturned. They could tell that their eldest brother's family already had some assets now. If their eldest brother could afford a carriage and servants, their lives would definitely be worlds apart from before. However, the difference was not to this extent. Why did it sound like their eldest brother was even more powerful than the Zhou mansion that trapped them and made them tremble in fear? The impact was a little huge, and the couple could not maintain their expressions. In the end, Yuanzhi was too tired and fell asleep as he spoke. Only then did the two of them close their eyes and fall asleep. It was probably because they slept too late and had not slept so peacefully for a long time, so they woke up a little late the next day. The Gu family did not disturb them. It was only when Shao Qingyuan brought the old doctor and shouted for the patient the moment he entered that the family of three got up. The three of them immediately felt a little embarrassed and quickly got up to leave. When they came out, everyone saw that their eyes were red and swollen. They knew that they must have cried again last night, so no one said anything. Chapter 820, Dr. Xiong. The old doctor's surname was Xiong, and he had a bear-like temper. However, he was a very professional doctor. He could not wait to see the patient before he finished his tea. Looking at him, Gu Yundong thought of Song de Jiang. Were all capable and confident doctors so strange? However, she insisted that Bien Han finish his breakfast before going to the doctor. Dr. Xiong was a little unhappy at first, but when he heard that the other party's stomach was not good, he immediately waved his hand and asked him to hurry up and eat. When they finished eating and started to look at his legs, the family began to prepare for battle. Dr. Xiong washed his hands and quickly sat opposite Bien Han. Seeing that his entire body was tense, he hurriedly waved his hand. Relax, relax. It's just a look. The treatment hasn't started yet, and it won't hurt. It's too early to be nervous. Bien Han laughed at his words and relaxed at that moment. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Dr. Xiong knocked on his leg. He didn't know where it hit. Although it was just a light knock, it immediately hurt so much that tears were about to come out, and cold sweat kept flowing out. The others' hearts tightened. Yuanzhi hugged Dr. Xiong's hand. Don't hit me. It hurts too much. Dr. Xiong's mouth twitched. Then do you still want me to treat your father's legs? Gu Yundong was not good at medicine, but she knew that she could not disturb the doctor's treatment, so she pulled Yuanzhi over. Only then did Dr. Xiong continue to check. Bien Han's nerves tensed up again, afraid that he would do it again. However, Dr. Xiong did not do anything unexpected after that. After checking the legs, he retracted his hand and lowered his head in thought. Everyone looked at him, but no one said anything to disturb him. However, his silence made people a little anxious. It was Shao Qingyuan who asked him, "Can the legs be treated?" Ah. Oh, they can be treated. Really? Gu Dafeng was instantly excited. She clenched her fists and looked at Bien Han. Father, did you hear that? Dr. Xiong said it can be treated. Bien Han nodded repeatedly. How could he not be happy that his legs could be cured? Then, Dr. Xiong, what do we need to prepare? Do we start treating him now? Gu Dajiang was equally excited. Dr. Xiong glanced at everyone and said, whether the legs can be treated or not, we still have to ask for his opinion. What do you mean? His legs can be treated, but it's painful to treat them. I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand it. How so? Dr. Bear shrugged. First, we'll have to break his bones again, then set them back together. Break his bones again? Everyone gasped. Gu Dafeng recalled the miserable cry of pain when her husband's legs were broken by a horse. Her face instantly turned pale, and her body trembled slightly. Others might not know, but Gu Dafeng did. Although Bien Han was a man, he was actually especially afraid of pain. Dr. Xiong could also see this. The light tap just now was enough to make Bien Han break out in cold sweat and tremble in pain. The pain of having his bones broken again was really unbearable for him. Father Bien did tremble a little, but he looked at his legs and thought of his wife's and children's lives in the future. He gritted his teeth and said, "No, it's okay. If you want to break the legs again, so be it. I can endure it." He could endure it. His voice was trembling. Bien Han took a deep breath and looked at everyone's worried gazes. Finally, his gaze landed on Dr. Xiong. He closed his eyes and said, Come, let's break them." Dr. Xiong was speechless. Now is not the time. Chapter 821, Warm and Harmonious Atmosphere. Everyone was stunned again. Why? His body is still too weak now. Didn't you just say that his stomach isn't good either? At the very least, we have to wait until his body recovers and his spirit is strong before I can start treating him. Wouldn't that mean that he would have to worry for a while? Bien Han trembled again. However, he still had to listen to the doctor. Dr. Xiong continued, "Rest well during this period of time. I'll come to see you in a few days. When I think your body is good enough, we'll treat your legs." All right. Bien Han looked at Gu Dafeng, looking like he wanted to cry but had no tears. Gu Dafeng hesitated a few times, but she could not say anything. After seeing Gu Dafeng, Dr. Xiong took her pulse and confirmed that she was also weak and needed to recuperate with Bien Han. Then, he prescribed a few medicinal cuisines and got someone to make them for them. Gu Yundong was surprised. This Dr. Xiong was indeed very capable. He actually knew medicinal cuisine. After the matter was resolved, Dr. Xiong left the Gu family, leaving the entire family behind. They did not know if they should be happy or worried. However, the medicinal cuisines that Dr. Xiong mentioned needed to be studied carefully. Auntie Nyo took the list. Still, she couldn't read very well, especially since Dr. Xiong's handwriting was flamboyant. It looked too strenuous. Gu Yundong could only follow her into the kitchen. Coincidentally, she was also very interested in the medicinal cuisines. As for the shop, she would go there another day. Her aunt's matter was more important, right? Shao Qingyuan followed the instructions on the list and grabbed the herbs. Then, he taught her how to recognize the words while watching her cook medicinal cuisines. After clarifying that, he left. Gu Dafeng felt bad. She felt that she should help. However, she was worried that she would be clumsy and waste all the ingredients and herbs. She could only help from the side. Yunshu, Yuanzhi, and the others had originally planned to go to Tianhai Academy today to take a look at the wall that was filled with names. Now, they didn't go anymore. The two of them surrounded Bien Han and chatted non-stop. They used clumsy words to comfort him not to worry. His legs would be cured. It warmed Bien Han's heart, as if he was really not afraid at all. On the other hand, Yunka was also looking around the kitchen. Gu Yundong and Aunt Nyo were already used to it, but Gu Dafeng was not used to it. He was afraid that she would be scalded and hurt. It was only when she saw her washing and picking the vegetables that she remembered what Yuanzhi had told him yesterday. The young lady liked to eat and cook. Madame Yang was taking care of the flower pots with Lu Hongxiu. She had been in Yongfu village for some time, as if she was afraid that something would happen to these flowers. She had already checked yesterday, but she was worried and checked again today. The entire small courtyard entered in a warm and harmonious atmosphere. Until Tong Shuitao returned. She went out early in the morning and only returned at noon. As soon as she entered, she went to the kitchen to look for Gu Yundong. At the door, she cracked a few times, causing everyone in the kitchen to turn to look at her. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. You can't be considered mysterious anymore, all right? She put down the things in her hand, washed her hands, and followed her out. The two of them chatted at the side. Tong Shuitao looked mysterious. Gu Dafeng shook her head and smiled. She continued with her work. However, Gu Yundong did not return after a while. Auntie Nyo happened to have some words that she did not recognize and looked conflicted. Gu Dafeng took the list and went out to look for Gu Yundong. She did not expect them to be standing under the corridor talking. It seemed like she hadn't finished speaking when Gu Dafeng suddenly heard the words Gu Qiuyue. She could not help but be stunned. Chapter 822, Aunt Gus Concerns. Gu Yundong also saw her. Coincidentally, Tong Shuitao had finished speaking. She instructed her to continue listening, so she turned around and asked, Aunt, what's wrong? Why are you looking for me? Gu Dafeng retracted her thoughts and held the list in her hand. Auntie Nyo wanted to ask you what medicine this is. Gu Yundong took it and walked in. After entering the kitchen and discussing with Auntie Nyo, she noticed that Gu Dafeng had not entered yet. Stunned, she walked out again. Aunt, what's wrong? I just heard Gu Qiuyue's name. Realization dawned on Gu Yundong, and she answered straightforwardly, yes, I asked Shuitao to keep an eye on the Zhou residence and watch Gu Qiuyue's movements. Do you want to deal with her? Gu Yundong did not hide it from her and nodded. She went too far. Yundong. Gu Dafeng held her hand anxiously and said, forget it. Gu Qiuyue is indeed not a good person. But no matter what motive she had back then, she saved our lives in the end. For the past year, I've been her slave for her. Take it as repayment for saving our lives. Now that your uncle and I have left the Zhou residence, we only want to have nothing to do with her from now on. Just pretend that you don't know her from now on. You don't have to. Gu Dafeng knew that she did not know what was good for her. Yundong wanted to take revenge on Gu Qiuyue for their sake. But Gu Qiuyue was old Master Zhou's concubine now. Old Master Zhou doted on her very much. What if he went against the Gu family because of Gu Qiuyue? Could it be that she would implicate them after being saved by her eldest brother? She felt that Yundong was very powerful after hearing what Yuanzhi said last night. However, Gu Dafeng had never experienced it herself. She could not clearly understand how powerful Gu Yundong was. However, she had stayed in the Zhou family for a year and had personally experienced how different the Zhou family was from the environment she used to be in. Gu Yundong saw through Gu Dafeng's concerns at a glance and understood her worries. Hence, she gently held her hand and smiled. All right, then I'll listen to you and let the grudge between the two of you be written off. Yes, she was referring to the feud between Eldest Aunt Gu and Gu Qiuyue. However, she didn't say that the grudge between her and Gu Qiuyue didn't exist. Gu Yundong did not forget how Gu Qiuyue had conspired with Master Qian on the way to escape. She had gotten Fu Ming to lead them to chase after her family just to sell her and her younger siblings to Master Qian. That woman wanted them to live a life worse than death. At that time, Master Qian had chased after him with a group of people in a fierce manner, looking like he was determined to win. If not for the fact that she was smart and had a weapon in her hand, she would probably be in any brothel now. Her younger siblings might not even be alive. Was this something a biological aunt would do? Even a stranger would not be so vicious. Gu Yundong did not forget that when his father met Gu Qiuyue, she had deliberately misled him to Wanqing Prefecture. She had always remembered these grudges. Gu Qiuyue didn't save her life, so there was no such thing as a clean slate. Previously, Gu Yundong heard that she was already dead, so the hatred naturally dissipated. At most, Gu Yundong would lament that the wicked would be punished by the heavens. This person had finally gotten her retribution. But wasn't she still alive now? Furthermore, she was living happily. She was living a better and richer life than before. She even took pleasure in torturing eldest Aunt Gu and her husband. Then she had to settle the score properly. Chapter 823, Gu Qiuyue's Amazing Operation. Seeing that she had agreed, eldest Aunt Gu heaved a sigh of relief and smiled again. Gu Yundong pulled her into the kitchen and got busy again. But to Gu Yundong's surprise, before she could settle the score with Gu Qiuyue, the woman came to find trouble. After Gu Yundong found eldest Aunt Gu, she forgot about the portraits on the notice wall and did not tear them off in time. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Ren tore off the 2 portraits and followed the address on them to Aunt Ke's house. She told Aunt Ke that she knew where the 2 of them were. Aunt Ke was stunned. She had gone to the small courtyard frequently, especially because she had not seen Yunshu and Yuanzhi for a long time. Therefore, on the 2nd and 3rd day after the Gu family returned to the prefecture capital, she went to the small courtyard. Naturally, she knew about the joyous occasion of Yuanzhi and his parents reuniting. She had seen eldest Aunt Gu and Bianhan before, so she more or less knew about their experiences. While feeling pity for her, she also scolded Gu Qiuyue harshly. The person in front called herself Mrs. Ren. Could she be Mrs. Ren who was by Gu Qiuyue's side that Yundong mentioned? Aunt Ke pondered in her heart. She did not know what she was up to, so she nodded without batting an eyelid, indicating that she would bring her to meet the real person who was looking for her. Mrs. Ren was a little surprised. She thought that the person who was looking for them was Aunt Ke, but she did not expect this to be just a place for contact. Why was the person behind this so mysterious? For a moment, Mrs. Ren thought too much. She felt that the person who had spent so much effort to find eldest Aunt Gu and her husband probably had a feud with these 2 people. Otherwise, why would they go through so much trouble? Thinking of this possibility, Mrs. Ren began to get excited. She followed Aunt Ke to look for Gu Yundong. On the way, she could not help but ask, "Sister, who is this person? What's their relationship with the person in this portrait? Who's your sister?" Aunt Ke's expression turned ugly. She looked at Mrs. Ren, who was at least 10 years older than her, and almost couldn't help but spit on her face. She replied impatiently, "Ask them when you see them." "I don't know." Mrs. Ren felt that this person was difficult to get along with, so the smile on her face disappeared and she snorted. Aunt Ke brought her directly to Gus. Gu Yundong happened to be at Gus to look at the accounts and understand the recent income situation. Zheng complained at the side. "Many people say that we have too little goods here. There's not enough for them to eat at all. The people in this prefectural city are rich. When they buy things, they plan to buy baskets of goods. If we limit their purchases, they will scold us." It was too difficult for him. Gu Yundong found it funny. "Thank you, Uncle Zheng. That's not a big deal. We won't lose a piece of meat even if they scold us. In any case, they'll still spend money to buy our things. However, boss, are we really not considering opening another shop in the west of the city? This place was too far from the west of the city. The people who came to buy things from there scolded the most fiercely. Gu Yundong also wanted to open it, but her energy was limited. This milk tea shop had just opened not long ago, so she had to take it one step at a time. However, she could indeed get prepared first. If there was a suitable shop, she could buy it first. At this thought, Gu Yundong instructed Zheng to be careful. Just as Zheng had agreed, 2 people came in. The person in front was Aunt Ke. Gu Yundong immediately went up to her happily. "Aunt, why are you?" Before she could finish speaking, Aunt Ku took a step to the side, revealing Mrs. Ren's wrinkled face. Chapter 824. What's your relationship with the person in this painting? Gu Yundong's smile froze. She frowned slightly and looked at Aunt Ku. The latter introduced with a gloating expression, "This is Mrs. Ren." She tore off the missing person portraits on the notice wall and said that she knew the whereabouts of the people on the portraits. "She specially came to tell us." Gu Yundong was speechless. Yes, the portraits. She had forgotten to tear them off. However, Mrs. Ren actually wanted to tell her about the whereabouts of her eldest aunt and uncle? What kind of mess was this? Gu Yundong thought for a while, then nodded at Mrs. Ren and said, "Come with me. Let's talk in the backyard." Mrs. Ren had just finished sizing up the shop in front of her and was thinking that this shop was quite big. Hearing Gu Yundong's words, she quickly followed him with a smile. Aunt Ku also went to join in the fun. The three of them went to the backyard and sat on the stone bench. However, as soon as she sat down, Aunt Ku stood up. The weather was cold, and the stone stool was also cold. She went to the second floor and took a cushion for herself. When Mrs. Ren saw this, she was a little envious. She was the oldest here and could not stand the cold the most. But since Gu Yundong did not mention it and Aunt Ku only took one, she could not say anything. However, she did not know that Gu Yundong had deliberately chosen this place. In any case, she did not want to bring the stranger up to the second floor to chat in such a good environment. She was wearing too many clothes and it was a little hot. It was good to have a breather. Su Changshan, on the other hand, did not know the inside story. He served tea to the three of them. Mrs. Ren took a sip and felt her body warm up. Gu Yundong asked, "You said that you have news about the people on the portraits? Is that true? You're not lying to me?" No. How can this be a lie?" "That's hard to say," Gu Yundong said lazily. Previously, there were several people who provided fake news for the bounties, making people happy for nothing. "I hope what you said is not fake, or I'll get someone to kick you out." Mrs. Ren trembled violently and immediately raised her right hand to make an oath. "I swear that what I said is true. If there's even half a lie, it'll be struck by lightning." Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. This woman was quite ruthless to herself. In order to make Gu Yundong believe in her, Mrs. Ren quickly said, "The woman on this portrait is called Gu Dafeng, right? The man is called Bian Han, right?" Gu Yundong had more or less guessed what Mrs. Ren wanted to do. She was unhappy that Dai Wenhua had bought her aunt and uncle and wanted to make things difficult for them. It was a pity that neither she nor Gu Qiuyue would be able to get what they wanted. At the thought of this, Gu Yundong became slightly excited. He looked at Mrs. Ren with shining eyes. Yes. That's her name. It seems that you really know where they are. Tell me, as long as the information you provide is true, I'll give you the bounty immediately." Mrs. Ren was also quite tempted by the bounty and immediately said, "Gu Dafeng and Father Bian are now in Magistrate Dais residence. Young Master Dai bought them." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. "Really? You're not lying to me. They're in the Dai residence?" "Yes, every word is true." Gu Yundong laughed out loud. That's great. Aunt Ku raised her eyes slightly and snorted secretly. A drama queen. Seeing that she seemed to be very happy, Mrs. Ren frowned slightly and asked softly, "Miss, can I ask you what their relationship is with you? Why did you spend such a high bounty to find them? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 825. Mrs. Ren takes a huge blow. Gu Yundong was still smiling. Hearing this, he waved his hand and said it nonchalantly. "They're my aunt and uncle. I've been looking for them for more than a year. It's just that I haven't heard from them. Now, I finally have news. Thank you. As she spoke, she sounded a little sad. I don't know if they've had a good year or if they've suffered, but it doesn't matter. Now that I've found them, they'll bring them home and definitely let them live a good life. Not to mention anything else, at least they won't have to worry about food and drinks. They'll have servants by their side to serve them. They'll be able to live a happy life after suffering. Mrs. Ren felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Aunt, and uncle? And she wanted them to live a good life? Was this person the daughter of the Gu family's first branch, as concubine Gu had said? Ren's mother felt sick. She shook her head in a daze. How could it be? How could it be? Why weren't they enemies? Actually, Gu Yundong was right. Mrs. Ren and Gu Qiuyue were indeed very unhappy that Gu Dafeng and her husband could leave the Zhou residence and go to the Dai residence to follow young Master Dai, who had a bright future. Especially when Gu Qiuyue had fallen out of favor. Initially, this matter did not have much to do with Mrs. Ren. She did not have any grudges with Gu Dafeng. If they left, so be it. She would have less trouble. However, the bad thing was that Bien Han's words before he left completely ignited Zhou Dafeng's anger. Gu Qi's good, simple, and kind character instantly collapsed, and she even pushed Zhou Dafu into an extremely embarrassing situation. After all, Bien Han had said those words in front of Dai Wenhua. Now that young Master Dai knew that his concubine was actually such a vicious person, not only did he seem like a joke, but his taste was bad, so muddle-headed that he was fooled by a woman. Hence, Gu Qiuyue had fallen out of favor. Not only her, even Mrs. Ren was affected. In the past, Zhou Dafu could be tolerant of Mrs. Ren on account of his mother because Mrs. Ren usually spoke eloquently and did not make any big mistakes. However, this did not mean that Mrs. Ren could lie to him in front of everyone. Back then, she was the one who said that the couple was selling themselves. She said that Gu Qiuyue was kind and compassionate to accept them. Bullshit. What did she take him for? A servant actually fooled the head of the family. Not selling her was already the last act of filial piety to the old madam. Zhou Dafu no longer cared about her confession and apology. He didn't even look at her. Mrs. Ren's heart was filled with hatred. She wished she could rush to the Dai residence and kill this couple. Hence, when Gu Qiuyue was indignant and wanted to cause trouble for them, Mrs. Ren thought of the two portraits. The two of them also guessed who the person was and finally felt that there were only two possibilities. One was enemy, and the other was family member or friend. However, no matter what, if they cared about Gu Dafeng and her husband, they would definitely go to the Dai residence to ask for them. Young Master Dai had just bought Gu Dafeng and her husband back for less than 2 days. He would definitely not be willing to give them back. Wasn't there a conflict now? In any case, even if there was no big conflict, a small trouble was enough to make Dai Wenhua's impression of Gu Dafeng and her husband worse. At the thought of Dai Wenhua, Mrs. Ren's hope was instantly reignited. She immediately said, "Miss, although the other party is your family, now that they have been bought by young Master Dai, they have already become servants of the Dai residence. Even if you want to bring them back to enjoy life, I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 826, I happen to know young Master Dai. Yes, that was it. Mrs. Ren felt a little better. She suddenly felt that this seemed to be more painful for Gu Dafeng. Just think about it. It was not easy for her to find her family, but she could not reunite with them. The good days were clearly close, but she could only be a servant and continue to serve others. So what if Gu Yundong opened a shop, had money, and had servants? Wasn't Gu Dafeng still a slave? This feeling of helplessness was the most interesting. Mrs. Ren could not help but smile as she thought about it. Aunt Ku also smiled slightly. Gu Yundong laughed twice and waved his hand. It's all right, it's all right. I happen to know young Master Dai. He's a loyal person and has a good temper. If he knows the ins and outs of the matter, he will definitely let my aunt and uncle come back with me. When the time comes, they can still live a good life after being expelled from the slave registry. No matter what, thank you for today. He knew young Master Dai. The corners of Mrs. Ren's lips froze halfway. She was in a daze. Gu Yundong was still laughing, mainly because she really could not hold it in anymore. This woman actually came to her door to seek abuse. She would feel sorry if she did not provoke the visitor with a few words. Cough cough, it was better to restrain herself. Gu Yundong reached out and patted Mrs. Ren's shoulder. She said gratefully, "It's all thanks to you. Otherwise, I don't know when we would have met again. I'm really too happy. I can't wait any longer. I'll go look for young Master Dai now and meet my aunt and uncle." "Thank you." With that, she stood up and ran off without even mentioning the bounty. However, at this moment, how could Mrs. Ren think of the bounty? She stood up numbly. She seemed to have heard Aunt Ku say that she would walk her out. She nodded blankly and walked out. Gu Yundong only came down from the second floor after Mrs. Ren left Gus. He looked at Aunt Ku. "She's gone. She's gone." Aunt Ku looked at her speechlessly. "In order to shirk that bounty, you've put on a good show." "You can't say that." "What do you mean by shirking?" "My aunt and uncle have already returned home, so the news she provided that they're in the Dai residence is fake. She lied to me and am already being polite by not kicking her out. She still wanted a bounty? Dream on." Gu Yundong returned to the counter and continued talking to Zhengang. Aunt Ku pointed at her forehead. "Anyway, you're right. There's nothing else for me to do here. I'll go back first." "Don't go back yet. Let's go back to the small courtyard for dinner later. Next time." Aunt Ku waved her hand and left. Now that the Gu family was reunited, she did not want to join in the fun. It was better to go home. Seeing that she insisted, Gu Yundong did not ask her to stay. He lowered his head and continued to look at the account book. Zhengang was right. The business in this shop was really good. In just half a day, there were already a lot of customers. She saw that Su Changshan didn't rest at all. He was so busy. It seemed like she wouldn't let him down if she didn't give him a raise. Gu Yundong closed the ledger. Seeing that it was rare for him to rest, he waved him over and asked, "I heard that you moved. Where did you move to?" Su Changshan wiped his sweat with a towel and replied, "It's just a little over Xingtao Street. Just a walk of almost an hour." Xingtao Street, Why does it sound so familiar? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 827, It's Hers. Gu Yundong thought about it. Wasn't it the place where Shao Yuan's family used to live? That position, Gu Yundong asked curiously. "I remember that there's a group of local tyrants living there. They're quite fierce." Su Changshan nodded. "Indeed. When my mother was looking for them, she was deceived by that person. The person didn't tell us that there were local tyrants who would wander outside. My mother saw that it was close to Su Qing's shop and the rent wasn't expensive, so she quickly rented it. In the end, on the day we moved, there was indeed a local tyrant who came looking for us." At this point, he laughed. But for some reason, although the local bully was very arrogant when he came to our door, when he saw us, he suddenly cowered. I didn't even have time to take a stick before they ran away in a hurry for no reason. It was as if they were afraid of me and never came again. Gu Yundong blinked and quickly understood. When Gus opened, the local gangsters were waiting outside to cause trouble. Therefore, they must have seen Su Changshan as a worker and knew that he was from Gus. Gus had a powerful backer, so they were afraid of Su Changshan, so they naturally didn't dare to come and cause trouble. Zhengang, who was at the side, also laughed out loud. This is not inexplicable. These local tyrants have come to find trouble with Gus in the past, but they were ruthlessly taught a lesson by the boss and Qingyuan. They're afraid. I reckon that they must know that you're a worker here. Su Changshan was surprised. Is that so? In that case, it's all thanks to boss and young Master Shao. Regardless of the reason, since you're our shop's assistant, if you encounter trouble, you can tell the shopkeeper or me. If we have the ability to help, we won't ignore it. If he became her shop assistant, he would be hers. Su Changshan nodded repeatedly. Hee, thank you, boss. But we're no longer in trouble. I haven't seen those local tyrants for a long time. Ever since we moved in, not only have they not come to my house, but they haven't even come near our house. Xiao Yuan even said that she has to thank me for this and gave us 2 pots of flowers. Oh, Xiao Yuan is our neighbor, a little girl. Gu Yundong exclaimed, is it Xiao Yuan, who grows and sells flowers at home? Yes. Boss, do you know her? That's right. I didn't expect the 2 of you to become neighbors. You're quite fated. Su Changshan chuckled again. After they said a few words, another guest came. Su Changshan hurriedly went to entertain them. Gu Yundong went to the storeroom to take a look and asked about the delivery. She thought that there was a huge demand now, and she needed more people to deliver the goods. In particular, her business was actually quite eye-catching. She had to hire some skilled people. Gu Yundong finished reading the shop and account book. Seeing that it was getting late, she left Gus. When she thought of what Mrs. Ren had done previously, she could not help but feel happy. She even bought some food from the snack shop on the way home and went to the ready-to-wear shop to bring home the 2 sets of clothes that she had ordered for Eldest Aunt Gu and her husband. At this moment, Mrs. Ren, who was on the other side, seemed to have suffered a huge blow and returned to the Zhou mansion in a daze. Qiuyue was waiting anxiously in the snow-blowing garden. When she saw her, she rushed over and grabbed her shoulders. She asked anxiously, how is it? Did you see them? Did you find out what relationship that person has with Gu Dafeng? Do they have a feud? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 828, She's the one who should enjoy her life. Mrs. Ren looked at Qiuyue in front of her. The corners of her mouth opened and closed for a long time, but she could not say a word. Qiuyue was extremely anxious. Say something. What's their relationship? No, not an enemy, but a relative, and Mrs. Ren wanted to cry but had no tears. She slowly told Qiuyue what she had found out. Qiuyue was stunned. She fell back into her chair in disbelief. Her pupils constricted as she muttered to herself, you're saying that that person is Gu Yundong? She opened a shop and is rich now. She even knows the young master of the prefecture magistrate's family. She will bring Gu Dafeng and his wife back and enjoy life? As she spoke, she suddenly laughed. Mrs. Ren, are you joking with me? She did not believe that Gu Yundong was still alive. How could Gu Dafeng enjoy life? Why? Why could she only be someone's concubine and be tortured by the main wife every day? Now, she was even despised by the old master. And Gu Dafeng, Gu Yundong, and the others had to live better and better? There was no such logic. She was the one who was supposed to enjoy life. Qiuyue suddenly stood up. I don't believe it. I want to take a look. I have to see it with my own eyes. As she spoke, she rushed out. Mrs. Ren's expression changed and she hurriedly hugged her. Aunt, calm down. I'm not calm. I just can't let them have a good life. Her eyes were red with hatred. She was indignant about Gu Dafeng, but she really hated Gu Yundong. If she hadn't caused Master Qian's death back then, Master Qian's subordinates wouldn't have blamed her. They had chased after her and wanted to take her back to report. She wouldn't have been separated from Fu Ming and her daughter wouldn't have died tragically. If not for Gu Yundong, their family would still be together. It was all because of her. Because she hated Gu Yundong but had nowhere to vent her anger, when she saw Gu Dafeng and her husband who were close to Gu Yundong, she brought them back to the Zhou family to torture and humiliate them. She wanted them to live a life worse than death to atone for Gu Yundong's sins. The more Gu Qiuyue thought about it, the more she hated it. Mrs. Ren could barely hold her. Seeing that there were people poking their heads over, she panicked and pinched Gu Qiuyue hard, finally waking her up from the pain. Mrs. Ren said anxiously in a low voice, "Aunt, calm down. There are people staring at us outside now. Do you want to be sold by master?" Gu Qiuyue shuddered. Of course not. She couldn't cause any more trouble now. Otherwise, Zhou Dafu would lose his last bit of patience. But, Mrs. Ren pulled her back to her seat and said softly, "I know Auntie is indignant, but it's already so late. Even if you go to look for her, you won't be able to see her. Moreover, there are people watching outside. Don't worry, I'll arrange it. We'll find a way to sneak out tomorrow." Gu Qiuyue nodded in a daze. "All right, I'll listen to you." Mrs. Ren sighed. Seeing that the people outside had left, she sat down. This snow-blowing garden was no longer the original snow-blowing garden. Ever since Master found out about Concubine's true colors, he was worried about her. Coupled with Madame adding fuel to the fire, almost all the servants in the snow-blowing garden had been changed. A few of them were planted by Madame. This made Mrs. Ren's hands and feet tied. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 829, Find Her. To be honest, Mrs. Ren blamed Gu Qiuyue in her heart. In order to vent the anger in her heart, she actually allowed her sister and brother-in-law to be beaten and scolded at will. In the end, after the matter was exposed, she was also blamed by the old master and her status in the residence plummeted. However, she had no choice now. Gu Qiuyue was not very knowledgeable. Other than being unclear about Gu Dafeng, she listened to her. Moreover, although old master hated Gu Qiuyue, he still let her stay in the snow-blowing garden safely. This meant that old master still cared about their affection. It was not impossible for her to make a comeback. Mrs. Ren still wanted to use her to continue acting like a tyrant in this residence. After comforting Gu Qiuyue, Mrs. Ren went back to work. The next day, she asked one of her trusted maids to change her clothes with Gu Qiuyue and pretended to be uncomfortable in the room. Anyway, Gu Qiuyue pretended to be sick for 2 days in order to regain Zhou Dafu's attention. The servants who were watching over them were used to it and would deliberately mock her and pretend not to know, let alone invite a doctor. Then, Mrs. Ren took Gu Qiuyue out of the back door with the excuse that she was going to get some medicine for concubine Gu. Gus was a little far away. By the time Gu Qiuyue arrived outside Gus, it was already noon. There were many people on this street and there were many guests in Gus. Gu Qiuyue stood far away and could not see the people inside clearly. She frowned and asked Mrs. Ren, "Are you sure this is Gu Yundong's shop? How can she open such a big shop and have such a good business?" Mrs. Ren was stunned for a moment. Actually, she was not very sure. But yesterday, Gu Yundong indeed acted like she was the master of the house. Even the shopkeeper in the shop did not say anything when he saw her bringing people to the backyard. Wait, perhaps Gu Yundong had something to do with the shopkeeper? Seeing how innocent Gu Yundong was, and how she told her everything she asked, it did not seem like he could open a shop. At the thought of this, Mrs. Ren felt a little more confident. Let's go closer and take a look. Gu Qiuyue stuck her head out for a long time. In the end, she only saw the shop assistant coming back and forth. She felt very anxious. You should have asked around yesterday to find out where her family lives. Mrs. Ren resisted the urge to roll her eyes. What excuse did she use to inquire about other people's residences? She was also annoyed, but she still brought Qiuyue forward. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the shop, someone suddenly walked out of Gus. It was a woman. Qiyue's eyes widened. That's Yundong. Mrs. Ren saw it too. She pursed her lips and nodded. Qiuyue clenched her fists. She was really here. Was she really the owner of this shop? The hatred in her eyes was about to spread. Her emotions shot towards Yundong at the door, making her look over as if she had sensed something. Mrs. Ren's expression changed drastically. She turned around abruptly and stood in front of Qiuyue, blocking their vision. Yundong only took a glance before quickly retracting her gaze. She just smiled and asked Tong Shuitao, who was standing beside him, "Where are they standing?" "That's right. I thought I hid it very well." Tong Shuitao was very speechless. Didn't they know that her whereabouts were very eye-catching? As she spoke, a carriage slowly drove over from the street. When it reached the entrance of Gus, it slowly stopped. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 830, She's going to tear them up. Yundong glanced in Qiyue's direction again before walking towards the carriage. The carriage door opened and Yunshu and Yuanzhi jumped out. Then, they turned around and let Dafeng, who was behind them, get out. Yundong smiled. "Aunt, you're here?" "That's right." Dafeng had been recuperating well for the past 2 days and was much more energetic. "The 2 children said that I couldn't stay at home all day and insisted on dragging me out for a walk. Coincidentally, they wanted to come to the shop to take a look, so I came with them." "You should come out for a walk. Didn't Dr. Xiong say that walking is good for your health?" Bien Han couldn't come out because of his legs, and he didn't want to trouble others, so he continued carving wood at home with a knife. Shao Qingyuan said that he would get someone to make a wooden wheelchair for him. In any case, it would take a long time for him to recover after he treated his legs. It would be more convenient to sit in a wooden wheelchair. However, it was not done yet. He had to wait a few more days. "Sister, is this our shop?" Yunshu walked inside excitedly. He had been in the prefectural city for a few days, but he had never come to the shop because of various things. Now, he finally saw it. Yuanzhi was still standing on the spot, holding Dafeng's hand. Ever since he reunited with his parents, he had become different. With someone to rely on, he felt much more at ease. The carriage behind the 2 of them was pulled away by Lu Sheng, who had brought them over. The area at the entrance instantly became much empty. Hence, when Mrs. Ren, who was not far away, stepped back and no longer blocked Qiuyue, she immediately saw Dafeng and her son holding each other's hands. How could this be? Qiuyue widened her eyes in disbelief. Yundong had actually asked Dafeng to come over from young Master De's side. Not only that, but Dafeng had also put on new clothes. She was radiant and reunited with her son. It was as if all the suffering before was an illusion. Her good days had really come. She couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand it. Qiyue's eyes turned red as she walked towards Gus. Mrs. Ren cursed in her heart and quickly hugged her. Aunt, calm down." "How can I calm down? Yundong clearly deserves to die, but she actually opened such a big shop now. Dafeng should have been stepped on by others and served others as a slave for the rest of her life, but now, she's actually wearing gorgeous clothes and reunited with her son. Someone even drove a carriage for her. Why? Even she didn't have any of these. What right did these 2 bitches have to enjoy it? She couldn't stand it." Qiuyue exerted all her strength to break free from Mrs. Ren's grip. The passers-by looked at them and pointed at them with strange expressions. Mrs. Ren was anxious, afraid that the commotion here would attract the attention of Gus people. But this time, even if she pinched Qiuyue hard, it would be useless. There was only one thought in Qiyue's mind. She would go up and tear them apart. Mrs. Ren was secretly annoyed. I know you're unwilling, but what can you do even if you're unwilling? Could it be that you can kill them? You can't do anything. Once you rush in front of them, you might be grabbed by the shop assistants and shopkeepers and sent to the government office. Do you want Master to give up on you completely? Qiuyue was stunned, and the commotion quietened down. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 831, Resurrection. Mrs. Ren heaved a sigh of relief and continued, and don't forget that Yundong knows young Master Dai from the prefecture magistrate's office. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to bring Dafeng and his wife home in just half a day. Later, she will complain to young Master Dai. If young Master Dai wants to pursue the matter, old Master will be the first to not let you off. Qiuyue listened and finally calmed down completely. Her flushed face gradually returned to normal. Mrs. Ren continued, I didn't bring you here today to agitate you to risk your life. I wanted you to see with your own eyes that their lives are good now. You can't touch them easily. Qiuyue suddenly turned around and glared at her. She sneered. Are you trying to tell me that I'm just a concubine who has fallen out of favor? The tables have turned. Do I have to kowtow and apologize to them when they see us? No, I want you to know that you can only deal with them if you're strong and stand higher than them. Qiuyue was stunned for a moment. After a while, she snorted. You make it sound so easy. How can I stand higher than them? I'm just an unloved concubine now. I don't have money or anyone in my hands. I don't even know young Master Dai. Mrs. Ren wanted to roll her eyes. This person was really insensible. That's why you have to fight for it. You have to obtain old Master's love again and become the mistress of the Zhou mansion. Mrs. Ren's eyes were shining. You have to do everything you can to squeeze Madame out. When you can make a decision in the manner, you will be able to know the madams of the real rich families in the prefecture city. So what if you don't know young Master Dai? Can't you know Miss Dai and Madame Dai? As long as you build a good relationship with them, what else do you have to worry about? The picture that Mrs. Ren had drawn for her was so beautiful that she began to tremble with excitement. Yes, so what if Yundong knew young Master Dai? When she got to know Madame Dai, she would tell Madame Dai that Yundong was shamelessly hooking up with other men and wanted to seduce young Master Dai to marry into the Dai family. At that time, she would not even need to do anything and Yundong would be directly dealt with by Madame Dai. Perhaps in order to prevent future troubles, not only Yundong, but the entire Gu family, including Dafeng, would be thrown into jail and finished together. Qiuyue laughed. She was so excited that her eyes were red and her fingers were cracking. Mrs. Ren heaved a sigh of relief. Qiuyue was a country bumpkin who didn't know anything. In addition, she was blinded by hatred, so she fell for her tricks. She knew very well that even if Qiuyue got rid of Mrs. Zhou, she might not be able to become the first wife. Even if she became the first wife, she would definitely not be able to get to know someone like Madame Dai. It was impossible for Madame Dai to like her at all. But so what? As long as she listened to Mrs. Ren and pulled Mrs. Zhou down, everything else was not important. Qiuyue tried her best to retract her gaze from Gus and look elsewhere. Only then could she listen to her mother calmly. All right, I'll listen to you. What should I do next? Get pregnant with a son. Qiuyue frowned. But now, old Master has already, so what? Old Master still has some feelings for you. As long as it's a little, you can revive. At that time, you can seize the opportunity. When you have a son, you will have a bargaining chip to fight with Mrs. Zhou. Although Qiuyue frowned, she still nodded. Mrs. Ren was satisfied. Let's go. I'll tell you what to do when we get back. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 832, The Jumpy Yunshu and Yuanzhi. Qiuyue looked at Gus unwillingly and left angrily. Neither of them knew that not far behind them squatted a woman who had her ears pricked up and was pretending to wipe her shoes. Seeing that they were about to leave, that person stood up and walked towards Gus with her head lowered. Yundong was introducing the items in the shop to Dafeng. When he turned around and saw Tong Shuitao, he nodded slightly and said, "Aunt, go upstairs and rest for a while." Then, she called out to Yunshu and Yuanzhi, who had already gone to the backyard. "The two of you, help Aunt to the second floor and enjoy the scenery." Eldest Aunt Gu looked at her helplessly. "What do you mean by helping me? It's not like I can't walk. Why do I need to help?" However, Yunshu and Yuanzhi had already run over quickly and grabbed her hands from both sides. "Aunt, this way. Be careful. Mother, let's go to the second floor. I heard from Kiki that the second floor of this shop is very beautiful. The seats upstairs are soft and comfortable." Dafeng looked at the two of them lovingly and let them hold her hand as they walked upstairs. Yundong waved his hand. "I'll pour tea for you." As she spoke, she really walked towards the backyard. Tong Shuitao hurriedly followed. The two of them asked as they walked, "Have those two left?" Tong Shuitao nodded. "They went home." "What did they say?" "I didn't dare to get too close, but when Qiuyue lost control, I vaguely heard something about unwillingness. Mrs. Ren persuaded her to go back and get pregnant first before becoming the first wife. I couldn't hear what happened after that, but I think she mentioned young Master Dai and Madam Dai." Yundong walked to the kitchen and poured fruit tea for them while smiling. "Looks like the backyard of the Zhou mansion is about to welcome a storm of blood. Miss, what should we do?" Yundong placed the cups on the tray. Tong Shuitao hurriedly picked up the teapot and the two of them walked to the second floor of the shop. "What should we do?" "Oh, Tao, concubine Gu has been with Zhou Dafu for more than a year, right? I heard that Zhou Dafu dotes on her, but she is not pregnant yet." Tong Shuitao was stunned. "Miss, you mean, not necessarily. It's only a year." Yundong shook her head. "It's normal for some people to take 3 to 4 years to get pregnant, but, until now, Zhou Dafu only had one son. He didn't even have a daughter. Qiuyue wasn't his only concubine." She smiled and said nothing more. They were already standing on the second floor. Tong Shuitao didn't understand. "But what? Why did Miss say half of it?" Yundong walked into the attic on the second floor and saw the two children lying on the sofa. "It's really comfortable. I can even sleep on it. Look at this pillow. It's soft and can even lean against the wall. There's even a storybook here. Wow, I didn't even see one in the county city. There are many bookstores in the prefectural city. There will definitely be many books. Then let's go to the bookstore in the prefecture next time." Sure. When the time comes, we can come here and sit in such a comfortable chair while drinking milk tea and reading scripts. Ah, this is simply a day for immortals." Yundong, who was standing at the door, was speechless. Why were these two so jumpy when she was not around? Ahem. She coughed heavily. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 833, Misread. The two children heard the commotion and stood up in a second. Yundong walked in and looked at the two of them with a faint smile. The two little guys chuckled at her and sat back down. They even jumped on the cushions. "Eldest sister, it's too comfortable here," so the small people in our hearts came out and spoke by themselves. We weren't the ones who said those words just now. Yes, it's not us. Yuanzhi nodded vigorously with a serious expression. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Just continue to make up stories. Their imagination was quite wild. Even the small people in their hearts had come out. Would another little person appear later? Would the two little people fight in their minds? All right, I won't stop you in your own home. If you want to jump, then jump. However, you can't do this when you're outside. Yunshu immediately ran over. No, we're very obedient outside. Everyone says that I'm cute and wants to snatch me home to be their son. Yuanzhi covered his mouth and laughed at the side. There were really people who saw that Yunshu was smart, good at studying, obedient, and good-looking. They said that they wanted to bring him home. In the end, Yunshu was so frightened that he thought it was true. He lectured that person for the entire afternoon, saying that it was wrong to abduct children. Other people's children would be ingrates if they were brought back. If he left his parents, sister, he would not be able to eat or sleep. Then, he would die of depression and haggardness. Then, he would not let them off even if he turned into a ghost. The corners of the person's eyes twitched and he had a splitting headache. He repeatedly promised and raised his hands to swear that he would not snatch him back before Yunshu was willing to let it go. From then on, he was given a nickname in school, the relentless boy after death. Yunshu did not say these things. He felt that this nickname was not good and would damage his image. Gu Yundong knocked Gu Yunshu's head and placed the tray on the table. She then asked, "Where's eldest aunt?" She just saw a vendor walking past below by the window. Eldest aunt went down. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Dafeng returned. Gu Yundong asked curiously, "Aunt, what did you see?" "I'm fine. I saw wrongly." She had been looking down from upstairs and almost thought that the person carrying the burden was her fourth brother. However, when she walked down, she realized that it was not the case. Now that she had reunited with her eldest brother, the whereabouts of the others were clear. Only her fourth brother was still unknown. Gu Yundong saw that she was unwilling to say more, so she did not ask further and handed her a cup of fruit tea. The fruit tea was sour and sweet. Eldest Aunt Gu took a sip and could not help but widen her eyes. "It's delicious." The other two children had already gulped down half a cup. "Eldest sister, can we make this at home in the future?" "Okay." Eldest Aunt Gu looked at the children and her depressed mood improved again. She finally had a chance to size up the attic. "This place is really comfortable." "Yundong, how did you think of this?" "I just thought I liked it, so I got someone to make it. However, this place is still a little small and simple. The milk tea shop is really beautiful." She happened to go to the milk tea shop yesterday and did not tell Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. She wanted to experience it as a guest and see if there was anything that needed to be improved. After checking it, it was quite good. At least in terms of eating and drinking, it tasted very good. When Yunshu heard her mention the milk tea shop, she quickly said, "Sister, can we go now? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 834, To the Milk Tea Shop. "Now?" Yunshu said pitifully, "We only have a few days of vacation left. I've agreed with Yuanzhi that I have to go to Aunt Kes' house and let him see the courtyard I lived in back then. I also have to go to Tianhai Academy to experience the strong academic atmosphere. I also have to go to the bookstore and find a storybook. No, find scriptures to read." There were so many places he had to go. His schedule was too full and he was so busy. It was really not easy. Gu Yundong felt sympathy for him. She thought that since there was nothing important in the afternoon, she might as well go. "All right, I'll take you there. At this time, there shouldn't be many people. It wouldn't be a problem to bring the two children over." The milk tea shop allowed children, but it was only limited to people under the age of 10. Moreover, most of the people who brought children went to private rooms. The two children immediately cheered and raised their heads to finish the fruit tea in their cups. Gu Dafeng shook her head helplessly. She drank very slowly. The doctor said that her stomach was not good now, so she had to drink and eat slowly to avoid getting injured too quickly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Gu Yunshu and Yuanzhi went to the cabinet on the wall to look for storybooks. I've never seen this before. Let's bring it back. Last time, Qingyuan said that he couldn't find this book in the bookstore in the county city for a long time. I'll bring it back for him. He'll definitely be happy. When Gu Dafeng heard this after drinking, she immediately frowned slightly and asked Gu Yundong softly, "Is that okay? Can they read storybooks? Will it affect their studies? What if the teacher finds out and is disappointed in them and punishes them?" Gu Yundong comforted her. It's all right. Mr. Qin doesn't object to students reading miscellaneous books. As long as they have a sense of propriety and it doesn't affect their studies, it doesn't matter if they read some storybooks. If it affects normal classes, he will confiscate the students' miscellaneous books and carry out. Yes, special education. Gu Dafeng did not understand special education, but from what Gu Yundong said, it was allowed by the teacher. Moreover, the teacher was the top scholar, so there was definitely no problem. Gu Dafeng was relieved. The two children had also picked 3 books and put them away. They smiled at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong crossed his arms and looked at them with a half-smile. Did a small person crawl out of your heart just now and control your hands to get the storybook? Sister, you're really good at predicting. Damn you, glib-tongued. The group went downstairs and informed Zhenggang. Then, they rode the carriage to the milk tea shop. Tong Shuitao did not go. She still had something on. The name of the milk tea shop was New Tea Pavilion. Nye Shuang and Madame Dai insisted on her naming it. Gu Yundong thought that she was bad at giving names and gave up on herself. She thought that if they were not satisfied, they could think of something else. Unexpectedly, the two of them agreed to it. It was simple and clear, allowing people to know what this shop was for at a glance. Wasn't milk tea new tea? No one had seen it before. Gu Yundong was speechless. Huh? Was it that rash? Yes, it was a very rash name, so much so that Gu Yundong did not often mention the name of the milk tea shop. Anyway, when she saw this name, she had no idea. The carriage stopped at the entrance of New Tea Pavilion not long after. Before the two children got out of the carriage, they had already lifted the curtains and saw the 2-story tall shop in front of them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 835, New Tea Pavilion. New Tea Pavilion? They got out of the car. Gu Yunshu and Yuanzhi looked up at the name on the plaque, deep in thought. Gu Yundong coughed lightly and was about to say, "Hurry up and go in. There's nothing interesting about this name." Unexpectedly, Yunshu suddenly said, "Cook new tea from the river and by all the green mountains as a drawing screen." When I see these 2 words, I can feel that this tea shop gives people a leisurely feeling. Huh? Are you sure? It was rare for Gu Yundong to have a nod in her head. She looked at the plaque above her head with a gratified expression. Relief? Gu Yundong shivered and quickly said, "All right, don't stand at the door. Let's go in first." Only then did they walk in. New Tea Pavilion's business was really booming. Even if it was not time for afternoon tea, more than half of the people in the hall were already seated. Most of these people were dressed gorgeously and spoke very softly. Even when they smiled, they covered their mouths with a handkerchief. Therefore, when she entered, she had a quiet and elegant feeling. However, Gu Dafeng was so shocked that she did not dare to walk forward. So this was what the so-called milk tea shop was like. She thought that it was similar to Gus. However, when she came in, she realized that it was completely different. She stood here as if she had walked into another world. She looked especially out of place. Yundong took a few steps and realized that her aunt was not following her. She quickly turned around and saw that she was at a loss. She was shocked and immediately took a few steps back to support her arm. Dafeng grabbed her tightly. Yundong, I don't think I should go in. Yundong thought for a moment. It's fine. Well, go to the private room. It's not in the hall. Eldest aunt, don't be afraid. I'm here. Yuanzhi is also here. This is my shop. You're an esteemed guest here. Come, hold your head high. I'll bring you in. She did not know if it was because of what Yundong had said, but with her and Yuanzhi around, Eldest Aunt Gu felt a surge of vigor. Yes, what was there to be afraid of? This shop belonged to Yundong. If she didn't even dare to enter her niece's shop, not only would she embarrass herself, but she would also embarrass Yuanzhi. Yundong looked at her slightly raised face and smiled. She still wanted her eldest aunt to become the hearty eldest aunt of the past. How cute, right? Let's go. I can do it. Dafeng also smiled. She was still very nervous, her palms were sweaty, and her back seemed to be sweating. She could even feel the guests in the hall looking over. But it didn't matter. She had Yundong by her side. She wasn't afraid. Yundong held her arm and walked steadily to the counter with a smile on her face. Yunshu and Yuanzhi were already standing in front of the counter. When they saw the menu beside them, they couldn't help but lean over to take a look. There was a lady behind the counter. She smiled and asked them, "Did the two young masters come here on their own?" Yunshu looked up and met the eldest sister with a sweet smile. Her eyes were also bright. "No, I came with my sister and aunt." Then she pointed in Yundong's direction. The girl was still smiling as she looked in that direction. The smile remained on her face, but her eyelids twitched violently. Yundong lowered her head and whispered to Eldest Aunt Gu. She did not see her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 837, Three Bosses. A customer looked over and Wei Lan quickly pulled her back. "Be quiet." Shao shrunk her head and continued, "It's fine if they sit in this shop for half a day, but the problem is that they keep stealing glances at others. Learning how to eat and drink elegantly from those madams and young ladies, I feel that it's shabby. Sister Lan, it's not that I want to criticize them, but if the other madams and young ladies find out, they will lose their temper and find trouble with our shop." If Yundong were here to hear this, she would definitely shout that she was wronged. She just wanted to know how satisfied the customers were with the shop and see if they liked the food. Moreover, she had really only taken a few glances. Who knew that this Shao would actually discover it? Wei Lan felt that Shao's words were all guesses. "It can't be. Did you misunderstand? I saw it with my own eyes. How could I have misunderstood? Just watch. They came yesterday and tasted the sweetness. Today, they came again. They even brought their families. If they come at this hour, they will definitely sit for the entire afternoon. Oh right, there's another thing. Su Qing was the one who entertained them yesterday. You didn't see her. She was so attentive. When she saw that the woman had finished her milk tea, she immediately went over to refill it. I think she likes to serve such poor guests." The more she spoke, the more she went overboard. Wei Lan couldn't stand it anymore, so she interrupted her and said, "You'd better tell me what's written on this list first. I'll get someone to do it so that the guests won't wait." "I've said so much, but you didn't listen at all? Shao Yi stomped her feet. Wei Lan handed the paper forward. Shao Yi was furious. Milk tea, double skim milk, fries, chicken nuggets, and a pot of osmanthus tea and a plate of osmanthus cake. They're all gone. Wei Lan nodded and wrote again on the paper. Seeing this, Shao Yi rolled her eyes. I told you for nothing. It's really boring. Her tone was really not good. Wei Lan pursed her lips, feeling a little dissatisfied. She was Nie Shuang's woman, and Shao Yi was Madame De's woman. In the beginning, everyone was the same and got along well with each other. After all, the two bosses had repeatedly instructed them to get along harmoniously and not to fight among themselves. Therefore, the girls in the shop were quite friendly. After all, they were all carefully selected. At least, they did their best to treat the customers. But as time passed, conflicts arose. Among the three owners, Gu Yundong had never appeared, even though Nie Shuang and Madame Dai seemed to think highly of her. However, everyone still knew that this boss did not have much power. In addition, they did not know her, so they did not know her personality. Chapter 838, She said thank you. Wei Lan did not like her very much, but she did not dare to offend her. The balance between the three bosses was very important. If she broke this balance, she would probably not be able to stay here anymore. Sighing inwardly, Wei Lan brought the menu to the kitchen and got someone to quickly prepare the food. When it was done, she personally carried the tray over. The round-faced girl arranged for Gu Yundong and the rest to be in a private room with a carpet and toys. Gu Yundong regretted it the moment she entered. This place was suitable for Kiki to come over at her age. The two kids were a little old after going to school. Just as she thought this, she saw Yunshu and Yuanzhi go in happily. Then, they started playing with the puzzles. I've solved the puzzles several times. Then why are you still playing? I want to challenge speed. I want to see how quickly I can solve it. Last time, I saw that the headmaster did it in less than 5 minutes. I want to be faster than him so that I can go to the headmaster and show off. Gu Yundong, your aspirations are really too great. This private room is not bad. After the round-faced girl left, eldest Aunt Gu felt much more at ease. She looked around the private room and seemed to like it very much. Especially when she saw the two children playing on the carpet, she was even more satisfied. Gu Yundong and her sat on the sofa at the side. This is just one type of the sofas. When this place closes, I'll bring eldest aunt to check all the private rooms. Why would I need it? Of course. After all, I haven't seen all of them yet. Eldest Aunt Gu smiled and pointed at her. So you want to go yourself? The two children who were playing over there also heard it. We want to go too. You're going back to the county in a few days. There's no chance. Yunshu quickly stood up. Then there's no time like the present. Let's do it today. Let's wait here until closing time and then look at every room. You're really impulsive. Let me think, it was mainly because Su Qing happened to be resting today and the others in the shop did not know her. They had seen the old women in the kitchen. After all, she was the one who taught them how to make milk tea. It just wasn't convenient. Moreover, the shop closed relatively late. They didn't tell their family when they came out today, and their family might be worried. Just as she was thinking about it, there was a knock on the door of the private room. Gu Yundong looked up. Come in. Wei Lan opened the door and walked in with a tray. She smiled and placed the things on the table. Then, she said, this is the milk tea, osmanthus tea, and osmanthus cake that the customer ordered. As for double skim milk and the other two snacks, please wait a moment. Chapter 839, Demanding a Beating. Wei Lan was a little annoyed. Was there no end to this? She was just a guest. Why did she have such a big opinion? She had never had an unhappy conflict with her, right? I'm asking you a question. Answer me. Shao Yi tugged at her. Wei Lan secretly took a deep breath and quietly pulled back her sleeve. She said calmly, no, be it that girl or the others, they're all quite easy to get along with. They're very polite. I don't believe you. It must be because they're in the room. You couldn't tell. If you don't believe me, why are you asking me? Wei Lan was not willing to continue chatting with her. She carried the tray and turned around. I'm going to get busy. There are guests outside again. Hurry up and entertain them. Shao Yi turned her head and saw a familiar young lady walking in. A smile suddenly appeared on her face and she hurriedly went up to her. Wei Lan shook her head and went to the kitchen to bring the other snacks from Gu Yundong's room. When she walked into the room, she saw her picking up the teapot and pouring tea for Gu Dafeng. Wei Lan took another look. She was indeed not as elegant, slow, and dignified as the young ladies of other rich families. She looked very casual. Miss, here are your tea and snacks. Please enjoy. Gu Yundong thanked her again. When she was arranging them, he asked casually, what's your name? Miss, my name is Wei Lan. Wei Lan. Gu Yundong murmured softly and continued to ask, how does it feel to be a shop assistant here? Yesterday, she came over to check on the guests' reactions. Today, she wanted to understand the thoughts of the staff working here. Wei Lan stopped what she was doing and looked up with a smile. Of course it's good. Our new tea pavilion is the only shop in the entire Xuanha prefecture that only sells milk tea to female customers. I'm very happy to be able to work here. Others are envious of me for becoming a female employee of new tea pavilion. Is that so? Gu Yundong smiled and did not ask further. She turned around and called out to the two people who were still working hard to solve the puzzles. Everything is here. Hurry up and wash your hands. Otherwise, it will get cold later. Gu Yunshu had just finished the last puzzle, but it had been a long time and he felt a little defeated. Yuanzhi patted him on the shoulder. It's okay. Let's work harder. You have to think like this. The teacher is so many years older than you. When you reach the age of the teacher, you will definitely be able to solve it faster than him. Gu Yunshu was instantly comforted. His eyes lit up as he said, that's right. The teacher is already so old. His hands are much older than mine. Then, he shook his chubby hand. After Gu Yundong left, she snorted. She would wait for 2 hours to see if the stranger would leave. If the stranger did not leave, she would have to ask her to leave. Gu Yundong returned to the room and saw Gu Yunshu showing off to Yuanzhi. I told you that my elder sister dotes on me the most. Look, I just told her a story and she agreed. It made the other stories I prepared useless. Gu Yundong could not help but knock him on the head. On the other hand, eldest Aunt Gu could not help but ask, you've been here all afternoon. Will it delay your work? She knew that Gu Yundong was very busy now. There were many things to do in the shop and workshop. I won't delay. I can take this opportunity to rest. In fact, when she went out just now, she was still wondering if she should take down the brush and paper from the carriage to take a look. However, she instantly dismissed this thought. I happen to have something to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 842, chasing Gu Yundong away. What is it? Eldest Aunt Gu asked. Eat first. We can talk slowly. Gu Yundong brought her a piece of osmanthus cake. Eldest Aunt Gu had a small bite and chewed carefully. In the past, she had bought a few pieces of osmanthus cake in the county city, but they were not as delicious as the ones here. After taking another sip of osmanthus tea, she felt as if her entire life was satisfied. Eldest Aunt, what are your plans for the future? Gu Yundong asked softly when she saw that she had finished a whole piece. When Eldest Aunt Gu saw that she was asking about this, she immediately smiled. Your uncle and I have already discussed this. Didn't Mrs. Ren say that your uncle's wooden carvings were selling quite well last time? I'll sell them. Although your uncle's legs are not good, his carving skills are getting better and better. Even if the little things aren't worth much, I can still earn a lot of money when there are more of them. Gu Yundong nodded. Eldest uncle had a skill that was already much better than many people. For now, he would make small wooden carvings. When his legs were better in the future, he could also make big ones. Then have you thought of where to sell them? Eldest Aunt Gu shook her head. I want to bring some to the market tomorrow and set up a stall on the ground to see how business is. Gu Yundong thought for a while. I know a market not far from Gus. It sells flowers, birds, calligraphy, paintings, and so on. The environment is not bad. Aunt, you can go there and take a look first. The small wooden carvings were also a work of art. There should be a market there. Eldest Aunt Gus' eyes lit up. Really? At first, she thought of finding a random place at the entrance of the market. In the past, when she was in Yongning Prefecture, there was no market in the county city to sell flowers and birds. Perhaps she couldn't come into contact with it, so she didn't know. Yes, the flowers in my mother's courtyard were bought at that market. The mother and daughter who sell flowers should still be there. The little girl's name is Shao Yuan. If Eldest Aunt encounters her, you can accompany each other. They're quite good people. Eldest Aunt Gu was even happier. She hadn't even gone to the market, but she already had a companion. If there was anything she didn't understand, she could ask them. In the end, she had never walked around the prefectural city here. She was more or less worried, afraid that she would not be able to speak to the people in the prefectural city. Gu Yundong asked her about the price again. The price that Eldest Aunt Gu and her husband set was really too low. This was the prefectural city, so they could still raise the price. Yu was shocked and subconsciously stopped talking to look at her. Gu Yundong raised her voice to the right. Mrs. Tian. Mrs. Tian also looked at her. The two of them were finally not as noisy as before. The entire hall fell silent because of Gu Yundong's voice. Shao Yi's fingers no longer hurt. When she looked up, she realized that Gu Yundong was in control of the situation in front of her. She was instantly dissatisfied. She was standing far away just now and the two madams were arguing fiercely, so she did not hear the two old women call Gu Yundong boss. At this moment, they saw that this strange person was actually bossing around in her shop. She was too shameless. The two old women from the kitchen were even listening to her. Had they forgotten who was the master? Shao Yi wanted to step forward, but Gu Yundong was already smiling at the two madams. Mrs. Yu, Mrs. Tian, are you dissatisfied with our new Tea Pavilion? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 847, She wants to subdue people with virtue. As soon as he said this, the two of them, who had wanted to speak, immediately choked. Yundong was still smiling. In fact, she really wanted to get someone to take them out. How much business had their troubles delayed the shop? It would be easy to take them out. But she couldn't. She ran a shop. There were so many people watching here. How could she use violence? If she gave people the impression that her shop was fierce and would chase customers out when things didn't go their way, others wouldn't dare to come. Therefore, she wanted to convince people with virtue. She asked again, do you have any dissatisfaction with our new Tea Pavilion? Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian suddenly came back to their senses and hurriedly shook their heads. No, we are not dissatisfied with the new Tea Pavilion. We are just dissatisfied with her. Who would dare to be dissatisfied with the new Tea Pavilion? However, they were indeed arguing and fighting in new Tea Pavilion. The two of them suddenly reacted and instantly broke out in cold sweat. Yundong continued to smile. Oh, they had a tacit understanding. Even their words were the same. Since you don't have any dissatisfaction, why don't you calm down and talk about it slowly? Arguing hurts the mind. If you get angry too much, it's easy to get old. You two ladies are both young, beautiful, and outstanding. It's not worth getting angry over such a small matter, right? Just treat it as giving face to new Tea Pavilion. Sit down and talk slowly, okay? Yundong gave them a way out and the two of them left. Now that they had woken up, they finally understood where they were. This was Madame Dea's place. A family like theirs did not dare to cause trouble. Therefore, although she still looked angry, she did not argue anymore. Seeing this, Yundong turned to Wei Lan and said, bring the two madams to the room and serve 2 cups of osmanthus tea to calm down. It was naturally not appropriate to solve the problem in front of everyone. Yes. Wei Lan secretly heaved a sigh of relief and quickly led the two of them to the side room. The 2 old women also let go. Only then did Yundong say to the remaining people, we've disturbed everyone today. Please forgive me. In order to apologize to everyone, I got someone to prepare some trinkets and let everyone bring them back later. Don't stop coming again because of such a small matter. She spoke eloquently and promised to give him something. Although it might not be worth much, this attitude made people feel very comfortable. Not to mention that they didn't dare to really blame new Tea Pavilion, but they had come over to drink tea and rest when they were disturbed. Their good mood was gone, so they naturally had a grudge. What's more, there was no lack of madams with husbands or sons in high positions present. They did not have to give Madame Dai face. They only pursued this quiet and comfortable environment. Yundong's words really made the madams who were about to leave stop. To be honest, the refreshments here were really delicious and novel. They didn't know what the trinkets were, but they were actually looking forward to it. Yundong asked the round-faced girl to clean up the place first before she excused herself and left. As soon as she left, the people in the hall suddenly reacted. This girl. Who was she? Was she a new employee in this shop? But her clothes didn't look like it. On the other hand, Shao was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly caught up with Yundong. Stop right there. Who are you? Who asked you to be in charge of our shop? You even gave us trinkets. You're really... Yundong turned her head abruptly and scanned her face with her sharp and cold gaze. Shut up. I'll settle the score with you later. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 848, Listen to Me. Shao was stunned by her cold gaze and stood rooted to the ground. She had only dared to speak ill of others behind their backs. Even if she chased the guests away, it was only because her heart was too arrogant for a moment. It was her first time doing it. Now that Gu Yundong was looking at her, she felt inexplicably flustered. Gu Yundong had already walked into the room. As expected, Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Yu sat on two sides and did not speak to each other. Wei Lan persuaded them softly and poured them tea. When they saw Gu Yundong enter, they immediately turned their heads away. Just now, Wei Lan had already said that this person was the owner of New Tea Pavilion. They had met Madame Dai and Nie Shuang before. This was indeed the first time they had seen this boss Gu, who was rumored to not even have come on the day of the opening. Gu Yundong sat down in front of the two of them and smiled. "All right, there's no one else here. You can tell me what happened." Mrs. Tian was the first to speak. "Boss Gu, I'm not an unreasonable person. No one wants to cause trouble for New Tea Pavilion. It's just that Mrs. Yu is too much. Not only did she occupy my position, but she also mocked me. Her words are too unpleasant." Mrs. Yu sneered. "What an interesting thing to say. That seat isn't yours. If you hadn't come to find trouble with me first, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But you're usually on the second floor." You're clearly, seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel again, Gu Yundong waved her hand. "Stop. Since both of you think that you have a point, why don't you listen to me?" The two of them closed their mouths. Gu Yundong smiled and said, "Mrs. Tian, every seat in New Tea Pavilion is prepared for all the guests. There is indeed no specific seat for anyone. Of course, I can understand that you come often and are already used to that seat. But Mrs. Tian, have you ever thought that you can change to another place and see other scenery? The second floor is not bad, and the rooms at the back are not bad either. You might not know this, but not to mention the second floor, even those rooms have their own scenery. If we change to a different one every day, when others ask about New Tea Pavilion later, Mrs. Tian will have something to say. Perhaps others will envy you, right?" Mrs. Tian was a little unhappy when she heard her say that she was in the wrong. The last sentence stunned her for a moment. A thought flashed through her mind. That's right, not many people came to New Tea Pavilion. She could come every day because her husband held power and her dowry was generous. The other sisters-in-law and concubines in the family, and even her mother-in-law, had only come twice. In the future, when the family asked, her mother-in-law would tell them how spacious and novel the hall was, how sweet and delicious the milk tea was, and how delicious and fresh the snacks were. After she finished speaking, no one would ask Mrs. Tian anymore. If she went through all the places in New Tea Pavilion, wouldn't she be surrounded like a star? In the end, she was just being vain. Seeing that she did not speak, Gu Yundong smiled and turned to look at another person. "Mrs. Yu, why aren't you sitting on the second floor today?" Mrs. Yu was stunned. Actually, she had been thinking about Gu Yundong's words just now. They seemed to make sense. Hearing her question, she glanced at Mrs. Tian and said, "I was originally on the second floor, but there was someone I didn't like on the second floor today, so I came downstairs." There were many people downstairs at that time. It seems that that place is not bad. Who knew that Mrs. Tian often sat there? She usually came early and went straight to the second floor. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. There are so many people who don't get along with you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 849, It's Over. Gu Yundong nodded, indicating that she understood. Then, she asked, "Have you never said this to Mrs. Tian? What's there to say? Am I very familiar with her? I can't even be bothered to look at her. She walked in front of me perfectly fine and even blocked my light." Mrs. Yu rolled her eyes, as if Mrs. Tian was a dirty thing. With this gaze, even ordinary people would feel unhappy, let alone Mrs. Tian, who had a grudge against her. Mrs. Tian's anger was instantly ignited again. You can't be bothered to look at me? Then I walked in front of you and you mocked me? If your words weren't so unpleasant, would I have quarreled with you? You were clearly the one who provoked me first. Seeing that they were about to argue again, Yundong said, Look, this is actually a very small matter. Mrs. Yu, don't say too much. If Mrs. Tian takes 2 steps, such a thing won't happen at all. What's the big deal? If I don't have a seat, it'll change it. If the 2 of them don't get along, they won't talk at most, right? I know you were impulsive, but if you quarrel in front of so many madams and young ladies, I'm afraid the entire Shuanha prefecture will be in an uproar in less than half a day. It's not worth it to implicate your reputation and your family's reputation because of such a small matter. The 2 of them stopped talking. Actually, they had calmed down and knew that they had done something wrong just now. Even if they wanted to quarrel, they could not quarrel in New Tea Pavilion. Although their family was only an ordinary rich family, it was really embarrassing for them to scold each other in public like a shrew in the market. They would probably not be able to answer to their husband and mother-in-law when they returned. The 2 of them thought it through and felt that what Yundong said made sense. Seeing that the 2 of them had calmed down, Yundong smiled and said, Can we just let this matter go? It's not easy for our new tea pavilion that has just opened for business. Take it as giving new tea pavilion face. I'll get someone to offer you some trinkets later. She gave them a way out, and Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian immediately followed suit. They smiled and said, Thank you, Boss Gu. Then, the 2 of them chatted awkwardly in a gentle tone and let this matter pass. Yundong smiled. Isn't that good? Damn it, it was not easy to be a female director of mediation. She was so tired that she was sweating. She might as well carry them out. Yundong felt that she had to hire someone who was capable in this area. Have some tea. The 2 of them drank a cup of tea. After a moment of silence, they finally stood up and walked out of the room. Yundong was the first to come out. Many people in the hall were waiting absent-mindedly. They craned their necks to look at the backyard. Especially that Miss Bao. She was standing behind the big screen, waiting to see the situation immediately. Shao wanted to go to the private room to take a look a few times, but she suppressed it in the end. The hall was still a little chaotic now. She still had to bring people to clean up and appease the guests. She could only suppress the dissatisfaction in her heart first. With Wei Lan in the private room, if anything really happened, it would be Wei Lan's responsibility. Thinking of this, Shao was not in a hurry. When Yundong came out, everyone in the hall looked over. Miss Bao took a few steps forward and asked softly, How did it go? Yundong moved to the side and Mrs. Yu walked out from behind her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 850, Trinkets. When everyone saw this, they were surprised. Oh, the 2 of them really stopped arguing. Not only did they stop arguing, but they also seemed to be able to talk calmly. They looked quite friendly when they walked together. Miss Bao's heart was itching. Miss Gu, what did you tell them? Nothing much. It's not like the 2 madams are unreasonable people. This is just a misunderstanding. Once the misunderstanding is resolved, won't everything be fine? Mrs. Yu nodded. Yes, it was just a misunderstanding. I'm really sorry for disturbing everyone. I was just being impulsive. Please don't take it to heart. The madams and young ladies present waved their hands and said that they were fine. In any case, they did not lose anything. They had even watched a show. Later, they could chat with others. Miss Bao did not get any useful information and sighed regretfully. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and asked curiously, By the way, you said that you would give us something. What is it? As soon as she said this, an older woman beside her glared at her. How can you be so unruly? Who asks for a gift? I'm curious. Aren't you all curious? That person should be Miss Bao's elder. Although there was blame in her words, it was mostly teasing. On the other hand, when Miss Bao asked that question, a few people who liked to join in the fun asked, yes, we're really quite curious. Miss, what exactly is it? Let us see it. All right, I'll go get it now, Yundong said with a smile. She also knew that the two of them definitely did not want to stay here anymore, so she nodded at them. Please wait for a while. She had agreed to give the gifts to them. With that, Yundong turned around and walked towards the storeroom at the back. She had the key to the storeroom in her hand. Madame Dai had given it to her when she went to the Dai residence a few days ago. There were naturally no small gifts in the storeroom, but there were in Yundong's spatial storage. Actually, it wasn't anything special. It was just her paintings. It was mainly because she had too many things in her space, but she could not take most of them out to use. What she could take out was not enough to offer so many madams and young ladies outside. Except, painting. Now that she had the conditions, she could make one painting a day almost every day when she was free. As time passed, wouldn't there be many paintings in the space? Moreover, it would not seem rude to give this. Hence, when Yundong arrived at the storeroom, she found a larger tray and placed all the paintings in her space inside. Some paintings were simple and some were complicated. There were all kinds of flowers, plants, mountains, rivers, bustling streets, alleys, and food. Yundong's mind was filled with imagination. She drew everything. At this moment, these paintings were all rolled up and tied with a red string. When placed on the tray, they looked a little high-end. Yundong carried the tray out of the storeroom and Wei Lan happened to rush over. She handed the tray to her. Wei Lan followed behind her and said, "Boss, I don't know where Shao went." Yundong paused for a moment before continuing to walk forward. Does she know that I'm the boss of New Tea Pavilion? If she knew, she might really escape in fear. Wei Lan shook her head. I don't think so. She had wanted to find Shao and tell her about Yundong's identity. It was more or less a way for her to be mentally prepared. As they spoke, the two of them returned to the hall. Most of the people's eyes were on her, but Yundong's gaze was on Mrs. Tian and the woman beside her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 851, Can You Get Out? Where did this woman come from? Why didn't I see her before? As Yundong walked forward, she asked Wei Lan, "Who is this?" Wei Lan said, "She came with Mrs. Tian. She seems to be Mrs. Tian's sister-in-law." As she spoke, she suddenly lowered her voice. I remember now. This sister-in-law seems to be Mrs. Yes concubine's sister-in-law. She also married the eldest son of the Tian family's concubine. In that case, the two of them were in-laws? Yundong frowned slightly. Just as she was about to walk to Mrs. Tian's side, she suddenly realized that Mrs. Tian, who had been comforted just now, had become irritable again. She looked at Mrs. Yu with uncontrollable anger. The woman beside her kept persuading her, "Forget it, sister-in-law. It's not like you don't know her personality. Let's just take a step back. Anyway, I've already gotten used to what happened at home in the past." "Get used to it?" Mrs. Tian sneered. "You're a concubine's daughter, but I'm not. I'm the proper wife of the Tian family. Why should I let her?" A trace of anger flashed across the woman's face, but she quickly regained her composure and sighed. "You're right. I implicated you. I shouldn't have followed you here. She provoked us when she saw us coming. She was actually targeting me. Otherwise, even if you didn't come, she would still find trouble with me. It has nothing to do with you. Sister-in-law, you don't have to take the responsibility. It's just that since things have come to this, the rest doesn't matter." I'm just afraid that it won't be easy to explain to your family when you go back. This matter will definitely spread everywhere. I'm worried that the rumors outside will be disadvantageous to you. Gu Yundong's face turned ashen when he heard that. Alright, she knew that such a small matter would cause such a ruckus. The two rich ladies were arguing without caring about the occasion. It seemed like there was a troublemaker here. It wasn't easy for her to persuade them. She just went to the warehouse to get something. Was the fire starting to rise again? With her bad temper, it seemed like it would not work to convince people with virtue. Gu Yundong stepped forward and patted the woman's shoulder. The latter turned around and looked at her in surprise. Gu Yundong was still smiling, but her words shocked everyone present. Can you get the hell out of here? The woman's expression changed drastically. She suddenly stood up. You, what do you mean? What do you mean? I don't care if you want to sow discord between Mrs. Tian and Mrs. Yu, but please leave this door before you speak. Mrs. Tian looked at her in surprise. The woman met her gaze and quickly denied it. I didn't. What do you mean by sowing discord? I'm just worried about sister-in-law. Gu Yundong did not have the time to argue with her. What did the Tian and Yu families have to do with her? The sisters-in-law started fighting. However, if they wanted to fight, they had to go home. You want to use our new Tea Pavilion as a raft on the spot? Dream on. Gu Yundong sneered. Do you think everyone is a fool? Do you think I don't have a temper? Get lost, Wei Lan. Remember her. She's not allowed to come again. It was just a shop, but it had actually become a tool for others to fight openly and covertly. It would be strange if Gu Yundong had a good expression. This woman thought that she had invited the two of them in with a good attitude just now because she did not dare to offend the guests or something. No matter what, the prefecture magistrate's wife was backing them up here. When it was time to be stubborn, Gu Yundong would definitely not lower her voice and be nice. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 852, Draw It Yourself. The woman's face turned pale. After a while, she looked at Gu Yundong with tears in her eyes and said, You, how can you malign me like this? You treat my sincerity as heartless. I know that I'm a concubine's daughter. You all look down on me. As she spoke, she covered her tears and ran out. Gu Yundong did not even turn around. She looked up at Mrs. Tian, who seemed to be deep in thought. She was also very speechless in her heart. She did not expect Mrs. Tian to be easy to provoke. Her temper was too easily ignited. On the other hand, Mrs. Yu had been watching from the side. At this moment, she walked over and thanked Gu Yundong. Thank you. Actually, I also felt that this quarrel was a little strange previously. It turns out that there was a villain causing trouble. Someone beside them whispered, That's right. When you guys were arguing, that person kept standing far away. Mrs. Tian immediately felt a little awkward. At this moment, she had gradually regained her senses. She immediately smiled dryly at Gu Yundong and said, It's my fault for not recognizing people well and causing new Tea Pavilion to suffer. I'm sorry, everyone. Since she had a good attitude, Gu Yundong naturally would not treat her coldly. Anyway, it was fine as long as she did not cause trouble in New Tea Pavilion. But it was impossible for Gu Yundong to still have a smile on her face. She asked Wei Lan to bring the tray over and handed them 2 paintings. This is a small gift from New Tea Pavilion. I hope the 2 of you like it. What's this? Miss Bao couldn't help but ask curiously. Gu Yundong took a roll and handed it over. Miss Bao blinked. For me? Gu Yundong thought about it and took it back. Hey, wait, I didn't say I didn't want it. Why did you take it back? Gu Yundong smiled. It's not that I don't want to give it to you. I just want you to draw it yourself. She placed the painting back on the tray and pushed the tray forward. These are all paintings. Take it as a gift from me to everyone. However, the scenes and items drawn here are all different. Some are simple, and some are complicated. The paintings are all rolled up, so I don't know what's on the paintings. Why don't everyone take a look and treat it as fun? Miss Bao's eyes lit up when she heard that. All right. This is interesting. The others also walked over curiously. The gift is actually a painting. This is quite elegant. It's more like letting us draw it ourselves. That will depend on everyone's luck. My hands are itching. Can I be the first to draw it? Hey, that won't do. Who doesn't know that you're famous for being lucky? I think you should be the last. The person in front covered her mouth and laughed. You said that I'm lucky. Even if I'm the last, I might still draw the best. Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere in the hall instantly became lively and harmonious. On the other side, Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian lowered their heads and left quietly when no one was paying attention. However, when they walked out of the door, they were suddenly stunned when they saw a person in the carriage at the door. Immediately after, the two of them smiled dryly and hurriedly greeted the person before leaving. As for whether they would come to New Tea Pavilion in the future, they did not know. In short, after Mrs. Tian returned, there would probably be no peace at home. Yundong naturally knew that they had left, but the atmosphere in the hall became more and more lively. Miss Bao was the first to draw a painting since she was the closest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Unfortunately, there was no such painting that she wanted. She was a little disappointed. However, soon after, she became slightly happy. This seems to be a charcoal drawing that's been popular recently. Is it a charcoal drawing? This drawing is too lifelike. Look, there's a shadow here. The people around them all looked over, including Miss Bao. The one in her hand was not a charcoal drawing. When she heard that it was a recent trend, a madam said, I've heard of this charcoal drawing. My son has been learning it recently. Sigh, if only I could draw it later. How is this a trinket? This is clearly something good. Isn't it? Discussions broke out in the hall. Everyone looked at Yundong in amazement. The people in the carriage outside the door had been watching silently. One of them could not take it anymore and said unhappily, Madam, did I say anything wrong? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yundong was dressed differently from Wei Lan and the rest, so everyone guessed that her status might be higher. Yes, you have good taste. Madame Dai became smug. She walked to Yundong's side and patted her hand. She said to the guests, Are you envious? But this is not the shopkeeper of our New Tea Pavilion. She is a boss of New Tea Pavilion. Boss? This was the boss of New Tea Pavilion? How was that possible? Although they had long heard that there were 3 bosses in New Tea Pavilion, the third one was too mysterious. They had never seen her before and she did not even come when the shop opened. As time passed, there were rumors that there was no third owner at New Tea Pavilion at all. There was only Madame Dai and Xiong. However, they did not understand why those people had to fabricate a boss. They didn't expect that there really was one. Moreover, she had appeared in front of them at this moment. She was young but plenty of methods. She had even given them a trinket just now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 855, You're actually such a Madame Dai. Everyone present looked surprised. Many people had already re-evaluated Gu Yundong's status in their hearts. Miss Bao was even more shocked. She actually didn't guess. Yes, Nie Shuang had said that the third boss of New Tea Pavilion had the surname Gu. Moreover, she came and went in the hall as she pleased and chatted happily. Why didn't she think in that direction? Miss Bao was extremely vexed. To think she said that she knew everything about the prefectural city. Her face hurt. However, among the people present, one of them was even more shocked by Madame Dai's words. Her face turned pale, and her legs were so weak that she could not stand. She sat on the ground. Why? How could that be? Was she the boss? The boss of the Gu family? Then why didn't she say anything? Was she deliberately watching her make a fool of herself? Wei Lan was the first to see it. Seeing this, she sighed inwardly and walked over to help her. Get up first. Later, go and apologize to Boss Gu. Perhaps Boss Gu won't make things difficult for you on account of Madame Dai. Shao Yi suddenly pinched the back of her hand. Her neatly trimmed nails still scratched a bloody mark on the back of her hand. Hiss, Wei Lan cried out in pain. Shao Yi, let go. However, Shao Yi raised her head and looked at her with hatred in her eyes. You did it on purpose. You know that she's the boss of the Gu family, right? That's why you worked so hard to please her, but you deliberately didn't tell me. I didn't. You did. Shao Yi grabbed her hand. You watched as I spoke ill of her behind her back. You didn't tell me anything and waited for this moment, right? Wei Lan, you're too sinister. You're simply crazy. Whether you believe it or not, I really didn't know that she was the owner of the Gu family. After I found out, I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't find you. You went to look for Madame Dai. Wei Lan pulled her hand back. Looking at Shao Yi, who only had resentment in her eyes and did not know how to repent, she completely lost the desire to talk to her. She stood up and said coldly, You're on your own. Then, she walked towards Gu Yundong. At this moment, Madame Dai pulled Gu Yundong and introduced her formally again. This is the third boss of New Tea Pavilion, Gu Yundong. She is very busy, so she did not have time to come here after opening. If we had not written to her to urge her, she might not have come. She is so heartless to throw this shop to us. There was intimacy in her words, and she sounded even more serious. Everyone present could tell that this boss Gu had a very high status in New Tea Pavilion. Gu Yundong said helplessly, I'm not as heartless as Auntie says. Look, I came immediately after you sent me a letter. See how loyal I am to you. Madame Dai leaned closer to her and whispered, If you're really loyal, teach me how to put on your makeup another day. Gu Yundong was speechless. You're actually like this, Madame Dai. She smiled and nodded. All right. That's good. Madame Dai was instantly satisfied. Since you're here today, I have something to tell you. Let's find a room. Gu Yundong nodded. Madame Dai greeted everyone and excused herself. The others had the painting in their hands. They knew that the two of them had something to say, so they did not ask them to stay. Miss Bao wanted to know more about Gu Yundong. Unfortunately, she was glared at by her elders, so she could only find another opportunity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 856, You Have Good Eyes. Gu Yundong and Madame Dai walked towards the backyard. However, when they reached the screen, she stopped in her tracks. Madame Dai asked, What's wrong? I'll introduce some people to Auntie. Gu Yundong pointed at Yunshu and the others who were sitting on chairs and talking to someone not far away. They had agreed to let them wait in the room, but it seemed like they could not wait any longer. they had already come to the hall. Not only was he here, but he and Yuanzhi were also playing with two other children of similar age. The four of them leaned on the table and looked at a painting. Eldest Aunt Gu was watching them from the side. The other two children's families were also present. However, perhaps because they could not speak to Eldest Aunt Gu, they remained silent and drank tea and ate. When Gu Yundong and Madame Dai walked over, the two madams stood up. Gu Yundong nodded at them before introducing Gu Dafeng to Madame Dai. "This is my aunt, Gu Dafeng." Madame Dai was surprised. "You found her?" She knew that Gu Yundong was looking for her eldest aunt and uncle. The last time Dai Wenhua went back, he did not mention this to her. That was why she was so surprised. Gu Yundong smiled. "Yes, I did." Then, she introduced Yunshu and Yuanzhi. Madame Dai looked at the two obedient young kids and could not help but say, "Are your younger siblings so lovable?" Yunshu nodded. "Auntie, you have keen eyes." Madame Dai was stunned. Then, she covered the corners of her mouth and smiled. She said to Gu Yundong, as expected, "He's your younger brother. It's obvious that he learned it from you." No, she was wronged. Gu Yundong held her forehead and instructed Yunshu and the rest to have fun. She had something to discuss with Madame Dai. Eldest Aunt Gu said, "Go ahead. I'll take care of them." The two of them left the hall and went to the room at the back. As soon as they left, the two madams who were originally not talking to Eldest Aunt Gu immediately came over curiously and asked, "Is Boss Gu your niece?" There were also people who heard this and came over to inquire. When Yunshu and Yuanzhi saw this, they felt that something was wrong and hurriedly pulled Eldest Aunt Gu back to the room. On the other hand, the two children had become familiar with Yunshu and followed her with their short legs. The child's family was speechless. However, the people in the hall did not quiet down because of their departure. Instead, the discussion became more and more intense. Still, no one knew which family Gu Yundong belonged to. After some guesses, there was no result. Even so, they all liked the paintings she took out. Although some people were unlucky and only drew the simplest ones, it did not stop them from admiring it. Initially, Gu Yundong thought that some people would lose interest in leaving New Tea Pavilion after the matter with the two madams was over. But now, no one was willing to leave. Gu Yundong was very satisfied with this scene, and so was Madame Dai. When the two of them entered the room, Madame Dai heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I heard about Mrs. Yu and Mrs. Tian. It's all thanks to you being present today. Otherwise, if we let them continue arguing, we wouldn't be able to do business." She frowned. "I'm afraid they won't have the face to come again in the future." Gu Yundong had also guessed that Mrs. Yu might come again, but Mrs. Tian might not. "Auntie, I think we lack a shopkeeper." Madame Dai clapped her hands. "I was just about to tell you about this." As soon as she finished speaking, a sobbing voice suddenly came from outside the door. "Madame Dai, Boss Gu, I was wrong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know at report so we can fix it as soon as possible." How many people wanted to come to New Tea Pavilion but could not? Madame had once said that if they could do it well in New Tea Pavilion, in the future, when the shop opened elsewhere, old people like them could be promoted as shopkeepers. At that time, they would be much better than the maidservants and grannies in the residence. If there was someone with outstanding ability, Madame would even strip them of their slave status and live a glorious life. This was a job that many people would envy. Shao knew that even Yuanzhi, who was in front of her, was tempted. Now, she had finally reached this step with great difficulty, yet she was going to be beaten back to her original state? No, that's not right. It's worse than the original. She had already been abandoned by Madame. Even if she returned to the Dai residence, it was impossible for her to do the same job as before. She would probably be exiled to the manor and die of old age there. Shao cried bitterly, but Yuanzhi frowned. She found two old women from the kitchen who had come out to watch the show and quickly pulled her down. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. The two children were overjoyed. Even eldest Aunt Gus's eyes were shining. After walking around, the sky was already a little dark. Only then did Yundong bring Yunshu and Yuanzhi, who were still extremely excited, as well as eldest Aunt Gu, who seemed to have a certain goal in her eyes and was becoming more and more determined, back to the small courtyard. As soon as eldest Aunt Gu entered the house, she could not wait to return to her room. She said that she wanted to tidy up the wooden carvings. She could clearly feel how successful Yundong was today. The business of the two shops was booming. If Yundong could make something out of nothing, so could she. Even if she couldn't compare to Yundong, as long as she worked hard, she could also have her own shop in the future. Her life would definitely get better and better. At this moment, Dafeng's goal was exceptionally firm. The next day, Yunshu and Yuanzhi followed Dajiang to Tianhai Academy and saw the stone wall engraved with names. As Dajiang was leading them, the two of them even entered the academy. After seeing this academy that had 100 years of history, they were overwhelmed with emotions the entire day. Meanwhile, Yundong brought Tong Shui Tao to the milk tea shop again. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.